What if the most dangerous people in your world weren't strangers lurking in the shadows, but the very adults who were supposed to love and protect you? Today, we're breaking down one of the most beloved stories ever put on screen. A tale about a little girl who gets dealt the worst possible hand in life and decides to deal it right back. At the beginning of the movie, we are introduced to a hospital delivery room, and right away, something feels deeply wrong. A baby has just been born, a daughter, and instead of the warm celebration you would expect, her father, Harry Wormwood, is standing there arguing about the hospital bill. Her mother, Zanea, stares at the newborn like she has received an unwanted package in the mail. They name the baby Matilda, and when it is finally time to leave, Harry dumps her in a basket in the back of the car like old luggage, then proceeds to drive home at full speed, taking sharp turns and hard stops while the basket slides around with absolutely zero concern. But here's what is even more disturbing. When the family arrives home, Harry, Zanea, and their older son Michael all walk straight into the house. Nobody turns around. Nobody asks about the baby. Matilda is still sitting in the back of that car, completely alone, and not a single person in her family even notices. That one moment tells you everything you need to know about the kind of home this child is about to grow up in. The Wormwoods are not poor. They live comfortably in a decent neighborhood. Harry runs his own business, but their financial comfort doesn't make them good people. It just gives them more excuses to ignore the one extraordinary thing living under their roof. And Matilda is extraordinary in the most breathtaking way. By the time she has barely left infancy, she is already operating on a level that defies explanation. One day, still hardly more than a baby, she spills food across the kitchen counter and traces her own name into it. Her mother wipes it away without even glancing down. The world isn't ready for what Matilda is, and her own family is the absolute last to realize it. By the age of 2, Matilda is dressing herself, washing herself, and managing her own daily routine. While most children her age can barely walk in a straight line. Every morning, the house clears out. Michael goes to school, Harry heads to the dealership to deceive customers, and Zanea drives off to spend hours playing bingo. And Matilda is left entirely alone, a child who shouldn't even be crossing a street by herself. But instead of crumbling, she thrives. She stops eating the canned soup left on the counter and figures out how to cook real food from scratch. She devours every newspaper and magazine she can find in the house. And then one day, she approaches Harry with one simple request. A book. Just one book. His response? Why would any person need books when there is a perfectly good television right there? He tells her to stop wasting his time and walk away. That is when something fundamental shifts inside Matilda. She understands clearly that waiting for this family to give her what she needs is an entirely losing strategy. So she decides to take matters into her own hands. Her very small, very capable 6-year-old hands. She finds the public library address in the phone book, walks there by herself, and introduces herself to the librarian, a kind woman named Mrs. Phelps. Mrs. Phelps is visibly puzzled. Where is this child's adult? But Matilda already knows precisely what she wants. She skips the picture book section entirely and asks for something far more challenging. Over the following weeks, she tears through history books, classic literature, science texts, and famous novels, while Mrs. Phelps watches in quiet, growing amazement. Eventually, the librarian hands Matilda her very own library card. Matilda starts wheeling books home in a wagon, and reading becomes her true education. In those pages, she encounters the kinds of people she has never once seen in her real life. Brave, honest, deeply compassionate human beings. And the contrast with her own home becomes more painful with every single chapter she turns. Now, here is where things start getting genuinely interesting. By the time Matilda is 6, her mind has grown to a level that is almost difficult to comprehend, but her parents still barely acknowledge she exists. One evening, Harry charges into her room and sees books stacked everywhere. His immediate instinct? She must be lying about having read them. He insists she is only 4 years old. Matilda calmly corrects him. She is 6.5, and she should have been enrolled in school already. Harry pulls Zanea into the conversation, and her mother also guesses 4. Her own parents do not know how old their daughter is, and this is not played as a comedic moment. It is quietly, devastatingly heartbreaking. Matilda explains she has been asking to attend school for months. Harry's solution? She needs to stay home and accept business deliveries for him. He orders her to act like a normal child and sit in front of the television. As she retreats to her room, Michael hurls things at her and mocks her. She closes her door and cries alone, but not for long. That same evening, Harry arrives home celebrating. He's had a brilliant day at the dealership. He hands Michael a set of figures and challenges him to calculate the day's total profit. Michael struggles badly with the numbers. Matilda, sitting quietly across the room, works out the exact answer in a matter of seconds, entirely in her head. Harry checks it. She is completely correct, and instead of feeling pride in his daughter, he feels threatened. He accuses her of cheating and peering at his paper. He insists a little girl cannot possibly be smarter than him. He threatens punishment. Here's what you need to understand about Matilda. Cruelty without consequences is the one injustice she fundamentally cannot accept. So, if the adults in her life refuse to hold themselves accountable, she will hold them accountable herself. The very next morning, Matilda quietly empties Harry's hair tonic bottle and fills it with her mother's powerful blonde hair treatment. Harry goes through his entire morning routine without suspicion, slicks the liquid through his hair, heads to the mirror to check his appearance, and discovers that his dark hair has turned an extraordinary shade of bright blonde. He screams. He actually collapses from the shock of it, and Matilda, watching calmly from the doorway, barely manages to contain her satisfaction, but she's nowhere close to finished. Harry takes the children to Wormwood Motors and begins teaching Michael what he calls the family business. What we witness inside that garage is nothing short of criminal. Harry fastens car bumpers with superglue rather than proper welding. He pours sawdust into damaged engine transmissions to silence the grinding accelerating just long enough for the sale to close. He runs a drill in reverse on the odometer, shaving thousands of miles off the displayed reading, so old vehicles appear practically brand new. When Matilda points out that everything happening in this garage is dangerous and illegal, Harry laughs and tells her, "Only fools play it straight." What Harry does not notice is that while he lectures his son on dishonesty, Matilda is quietly pressing his own superglue into the interior band of the hat he has been wearing to conceal his blonde hair. That evening, the family goes to a restaurant to celebrate Zenaya's bingo winnings. Zenaya asks Harry to remove his hat at the dinner table. He reaches up and pulls. Nothing happens. She grabs it and yanks harder. Harry's screaming fills the restaurant. The hat is completely fused to his scalp. Zenaya pulls with everything she has. Harry crashes backward. Tables go down. The entire restaurant turns to watch the Wormwood family completely destroy themselves in public. Matilda sits through the entire catastrophe in perfect, silent contentment. But one particular evening, Harry crosses a line that cannot be uncrossed. He snatches Matilda's library book, a book she borrowed from the one place in her life where she is treated with respect, and tears it apart in front of her. He forces her to sit and stare at the television with the rest of the family. Something ignites deep inside Matilda. She locks her gaze onto the television screen with laser focus. The screen shakes. The picture fractures and distorts. Electricity builds inside the machine until, with a tremendous bang, the television explodes. Nobody in the room understands what just happened. Matilda is not entirely certain herself. Was it a coincidence? Was it something in her? Was it something that has no name yet? She would find out soon enough. Around the same time, a very significant woman walks into Harry's dealership. Agatha Trunchbull, the principal of Cruncham Hall Elementary School. Trunchbull is the kind of person who makes every room colder the instant she enters it. She believes children must be governed through fear and has built an entire school around that single philosophy. Harry likes her immediately. He recognizes a kindred spirit. When Trunchbull asks about his children, he refers to Michael as his son and describes Matilda as an error in judgment. They strike a deal, a discounted vehicle, in exchange for Matilda's enrollment. When Harry tells Matilda she's going to school at last, her happiness is so genuine and so pure that it almost hurts to watch, because we already know what is waiting for her. She imagines bright classrooms, flower-lined paths, and welcoming teachers. What she finds instead is Cruncham Hall, a building that looks less like a school and more like a structure where optimism goes to die. And then Trunchbull appears in the courtyard. Every student becomes instantly, completely still. The principal moves through the children like a cold front, distributing punishments for the most trivial infractions, curling her lip at anyone who appears the least bit soft. We are introduced to two students, Lavender and Hortensia, who pull Matilda aside and give her the honest truth about this school. A boy named Julius once ate a piece of candy during one of Trunchbull's lessons. She picked him up and launched him through a closed window. Julius survived, but barely. There is also the Chokey, a long dark punishment cupboard lined with nails, shards of glass, and jagged metal edges, where children can be locked for an entire school day. Before Matilda can absorb any of this, Trunchbull's eyes land on a girl named Amanda, whose hair hangs in long braided pigtails. Without a single word of warning, the principal grabs the braids, spins the child in wide circles like an athlete releasing a hammer throw, and lets go. Amanda sails clean over the school fence and disappears into a field on the other side. The other children watch with the exhausted familiarity of people who have witnessed this routine before. Matilda enters her classroom in a state of genuine shock, and then she meets Miss Jennifer Honey. Miss Honey is everything Trunchbull is not. Warm, patient, and genuinely lit up by the children she teaches. During a mathematics lesson, she poses a multiplication problem that leaves the class struggling in silence. Matilda answers it before the question has fully landed. Miss Honey probes further, escalating the difficulty with each question she asks. Matilda answers every single one correctly and instantly. She reads from books intended for adults. She understands concepts belonging in classrooms many years above her own. Miss Honey is not merely impressed, she is genuinely stunned. She goes directly to Trunchbull's office and makes a case for moving Matilda to a significantly higher grade. Trunchbull shuts it down completely. Harry has already primed the principal. Matilda is a troublemaker and a liar. As far as Trunchbull is concerned, this child is a problem to be contained, not a talent to be developed. She warns Miss Honey that continued advocacy on Matilda's behalf may result in Matilda finding herself inside the Chokey. That evening, Miss Honey appears at the Wormwood front door and attempts to speak with Matilda's parents directly. Harry assumes disaster and begins yelling before she finishes her first sentence. When she manages to explain that Matilda is a prodigy capable of reaching university level within just a few years, both parents look entirely unmoved. Zenaya insists that charm and appearance matter far more than academic ability. Harry argues that educated people end up working beneath men like him. Nothing reaches them. Miss Honey leaves, and as Matilda watches her disappear down the street, something quietly settles in her chest. This woman, this quiet, unhurried, deeply kind woman, is exactly the person she once believed existed only inside the covers of books. Now, here comes one of the most unforgettable sequences in the entire film. Trunchbull convenes a school-wide assembly. A student named Bruce has allegedly eaten a slice of her private chocolate cake. His punishment is theatrical and cruel. He must consume an enormous full-sized cake in front of the entire student body, while Trunchbull watches, expecting humiliation and collapse. What she absolutely does not anticipate is Matilda's voice rising from the crowd, cheering Bruce forward. One student joins in, then another. Then the entire assembly hall is on its feet, driving Bruce through every remaining bite. He finishes the cake to a genuine celebration. Trunchbull is enraged beyond reason. She breaks the empty plate over Bruce's head and condemns the whole school to 5 additional hours of punishment work. Anyone who breathes a word of protest gets the Chokey. Shortly after, Trunchbull catches sight of Matilda and decides she is personally responsible for the defective car Harry sold her. Without any process or warning, she locks Matilda inside the chokey, but Lavender is already moving. She captures a small newt near the school pond and slips it quietly into Trunchbull's water pitcher. Miss Honey frees Matilda and returns her to class just moments before Trunchbull arrives to interrogate students. The principal scans the room, then pours herself a glass of water. The newt drops straight into the glass. Trunchbull recoils in genuine terror, knocks the table, and turns on Matilda as the obvious culprit. This is the moment that changes everything. Matilda stares at the tipping glass with total absolute concentration. Her focus is cold and enormous. The glass begins to slide across the desk on its own. It tips forward. The newt launches directly onto Trunchbull, who screams and thrashes across the classroom while the students erupt. Matilda knows with certainty now. The television was not an accident. She has telekinesis. After class, she tells Miss Honey what happened. She tries to reproduce it, but her emotions have settled and nothing moves. Instead of dismissing her, Miss Honey invites her to walk home together. On the route, they pass a large, handsome property with a swing still hanging from a tree and small worn details that suggest a child once lived happily there. Miss Honey goes rigid. What she reveals is shattering. That house was her childhood home. Her mother died when she was very young. Her father, Magnus, invited his stepsister, Agatha Trunchbull, to move in and help raise her. Trunchbull treated the child with sustained cruelty. Then Magnus died. Officially, the verdict was suicide. Miss Honey has never once believed that. After his death, Trunchbull seized the house, the money, the family name, and continued extracting a portion of Miss Honey's teaching salary for years under the pretense of repayment. Matilda listens to all of this and quietly arrives at the conclusion neither of them speaks aloud. Trunchbull may have taken Magnus's life. That night, Matilda trains in secret. She summons every act of cruelty she has suffered and channels the heat of it into her power. Books, cutlery, food, furniture, objects float through the air around her while she moves through the house with something entirely new on her face. For the first time in her life, she possesses something that belongs wholly to her and nobody can reach it. But Matilda is not thinking only about herself. One night, she returns alone to Trunchbull's house and uses her telekinesis to recover Miss Honey's childhood doll and a box of chocolates that once belonged to Magnus, all without ever stepping through a door. Then she goes further. She shifts the clock hands, opens windows from the outside, switches lights on and off in rapid succession, sends Trunchbull's athletic equipment rolling through the corridors, and removes Trunchbull's portrait from the wall and puts it in the fireplace. Magnus's portrait then floats down the staircase and settles in its place. Trunchbull is convinced she is being haunted by the ghost of the man she destroyed. She runs for her car, but before driving away, her eyes catch something snagged near the house, a small red hair ribbon. She brings it to her face, and she understands. The following morning, Trunchbull storms into Miss Honey's classroom with absolute fury, driving her forward. She lines the students up and begins tearing through them. Her eyes find Matilda, but Matilda has already prepared. She knows two things that belong to no one still living: that Magnus privately called Miss Honey Little Bumblebee, and that he addressed Trunchbull not by her title, but by her given name, Agatha. As Trunchbull looms over the class, a piece of chalk lifts from the tray without being touched. It moves to the blackboard and begins writing. The message presents itself as coming from Magnus, from somewhere beyond the reach of the living. It commands Agatha to restore what she has stolen. It warns that if she refuses, she will face what she dealt him. Trunchbull drains of color. She begins to come undone. She charges at the children, but Matilda's powers pour through the entire room, spinning Trunchbull across the floor, protecting every child within reach, catching Lavender in midair when Trunchbull grabs her and swings her back. The students finally see it clearly. Trunchbull can be beaten. Lunchboxes explode open. Food and water fill the air. Every classroom in the building joins the revolt. Bruce presses his hands into a chocolate cake and walks it directly into Trunchbull's face. She flees down the hallway and out of the building, and she never sets foot in Cruncham Hall again. Miss Honey moves back into her childhood home. Her father's money and property are returned to her. Matilda spends nearly all her free hours there, and for the first time, both of them begin to understand what it genuinely feels like to be safe. Then one afternoon, Zanea appears without warning and pulls Matilda toward the car. The FBI has closed the net. The family is fleeing to Guam before the arrest can land. Matilda refuses. She has built a real life here, a school that values her, a teacher who sees her, a home that feels like one. Harry cannot even say her name correctly on a good day. Zanea insists that Miss Honey would never choose to keep a difficult child like Matilda. Miss Honey steps forward immediately and tells her she is entirely wrong. She looks directly at Matilda, calls her spectacular, and says clearly that she loves her. Matilda turns to her parents and asks Miss Honey to adopt her. Harry protests that there is no time for legal documents. Matilda produces a complete, correctly filled adoption form. She found the template in a library book and had it prepared and waiting. All her parents have to do is sign. For one suspended, quiet moment, Zanea looks at her daughter and says something honest out loud, for perhaps the first time. She never understood her, not even a little. And then Harry and Zanea Wormwood do the single decent thing they will ever do for their daughter. They sign. Harry makes certain to note that no financial support will be coming. Miss Honey says they have everything they need. The Wormwoods pull out of the driveway and head toward the airport, FBI sirens becoming audible behind them as they go. Matilda stays. After Trunchbull disappears, Miss Honey is appointed the new principal of Cruncham Hall. The school transforms completely. Children are encouraged, celebrated, and finally permitted to grow into whoever they are capable of becoming. Matilda receives the education she has deserved from the very beginning. At home, she and Miss Honey read together, explore together, and fill the house with the kind of quiet happiness that neither of them ever managed to find find before. And one night, lying in bed, Matilda reaches out with her mind, gently, almost playfully, and draws a book from the shelf across the room. It floats softly through the air and settles into her hands. She opens it and she begins to read. That is the ending. A little girl who was called a mistake, left in a car park, ignored, belittled, and locked in a cupboard with nails, chose knowledge over bitterness, chose courage over despair, and chose love over every cruel lesson the world tried to teach her. And in the end, the world had no choice but to give her exactly what she had always deserved. Now I need to know, which moment hit you the hardest? Was it the choky, the chalk moving across the blackboard by itself, or the moment Matilda's own mother finally admitted she never understood her daughter, not even slightly? Drop your answer in the comments right now, because I genuinely want to hear from you. And if you sat through this entire breakdown without subscribing, I need you to stop and think about what you are actually doing. Every single week, this channel breaks down stories exactly like this one, the kind that stay inside your head long after the screen goes dark. Hit that subscribe button right now. You have watched everything and given nothing back, and the algorithm absolutely keeps track. Do not be that person. Subscribe, drop a comment, and I will see you in the next one.